Hey y'all, welcome back to Babeinlibrary. It's your girl Lisa, and today we're going to talk about the 12 for 12 video challenge. In this video, we're going to talk about the 12 books that I was recommended by 12 friends to read in 12 months for 2024 over on Instagram. Each month, I'm going to come in with a little clip of the synopsis of what I've read, who recommended it to me, and what my thoughts were. Starting off with January, I did read Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. This was recommended to me by Ricky from @RickyReads on Instagram. And unfortunately, I have to tell you all, this was not a favorite for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people love this, and it is a very interesting premise. This is the story of Maggie and Aiden. They are more mature characters. So Maggie is 48. She is recently divorced within the last 5 years. She is, I would consider a hermit crab. She likes to stay to herself. She is very prickly. I won't say that this is a grump sunshine romance. I'm going to tell you that this is a sweet and sour romance, simply because Aiden is our sweeter character. He is 50 years old. He also too suffers from a little bit of social anxiety. He has big feelings and emotions. He doesn't like to hurt people's feelings. He's always giving. He's always bending over backwards for others. Is the antithesis of what Maggie is. Maggie is very prickly, but one thing I can say, she is loyal and down to ride for the people that she loves. Even if her circle looks like a dot, the people that are on that dot are her people, and she's going to ride for them. However, I disliked almost every character but Aiden. Even going so far as Maggie, for the majority of the book, I tolerated her rather than liking her. And I think that's probably what the big issue for me is when it comes to this book. When I read things, I want to read for my enjoyment of liking their characters. And like I said, Aiden, who is my sweet cinnamon roll hero, I loved and I championed him. Maggie, she was fine. I kind of had some issues with her here and there in terms of her being contradictory when it came to how she lived her life versus her son. And I know a lot of it has to do with her marriage. So I'm not going to down her just because, like I said, I could relate with her very well in terms of how, how she interacts with people. I truly, one of the biggest and best themes of this is people should be able to live their life how they see fit. And if it is not of any harm to anyone else, that is their business. Let them be happy with whatever they're doing and how they're doing it. That's not your business, which is where the other characters that are in here really did tick me off. And I think that's what struggled for me, because I had to read so many people that I did not like. This is a community, a small town community full of horrible people. Aiden's brother, Aiden's mother, Aiden's ex-wife, hate, triple hate. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a difficult one because, again, while it was very strong in the message that it was trying to share, it gave great representation as well as sharing the lights of more mature characters, which is my bread and butter. I struggled a little bit with this. So I know I'm already starting off this 12 for 12 video a little bit controversial. I appreciate Ricky for sending this to me. I do know that a lot of people love this. I get why they love it. It just wasn't for me. So hopefully we can do better in February and have something that more aligns with my reading taste. But let's go ahead and move into February. So it is time to talk about my February pick, which was Mickey Chambers Shakes It Up by Cherish Reed. This one was much better in terms of align with my taste. So I want to thank KB from KB's Bookshelf over on Instagram. She chose this for me. I have been seeing quite a lot of people recommend this book, so I'm glad that I was able to read it for the month of February. This is a found family with medical health representation. You have two older main characters, very similar to the first book. You have Mickey, who is 33, and it has a little bit of an age gap because Diego, the main male character, is 42. Now, this has the most interesting forbidden trope being that Mickey is a professor and Diego is her student. Now, they don't know this at the time that Mickey goes to apply for working at Diego's bar. So it is also boss employee and forced proximity. Now, Mickey is a professor, as I've stated. Now, she is a little bit down on her luck because she's an adjunct professor. She does not have tenure, so she doesn't get the amount of classes that she needs to remain afloat. She has medical bills that are piling up. She has prescription needs that she has to be able to care for, and she doesn't want to continue to rely on her parents, which is a big thing. As a 33-year-old woman, Mickey is tired of being pacified and baby. She really wants to stand up on her own 2 feet, and she wants her parents to see that she can handle things on her own. And so she takes matters into her own hands, walks into Diego's bar and applies and gets the job on the spot. Again, Diego has absolutely no clue who Mickey is at the time, simply because he hasn't started the class and it is an online class. But he quickly finds out that his latest hire is his professor. That puts them in a little bit of a situation. Now, to let you know about Diego, Diego is a widower. He had owned this bar with his wife, who was the bright, shining star of his life. Now, he is a little bit of a grump, and so when he meets Mickey Sunshine, he is quickly enraptured by her. He reminds her a lot of his ex-wife, which totally scares him because he has not had a romantic interest since his wife passed away 5 years ago. So he's like, okay, I don't know what to do. Not only is this my latest employee, she's also my professor, also someone I am highly attracted to, but how do I remain in her orbit while also respecting her space? In this, their romance takes off fairly quickly, and the fact that their chemistry is brewing and bubbling over. These two fall fast, and it is just a nice palate cleanser to be able to read. I actually learned a lot, and this is a very diverse read. You learn a lot about Puerto Rican and Mexican culture. I believe that Diego is Puerto Rican. His family, who actually happens to be working at the bar, is like his ex-wife's brother, cousin, and I believe that they are Mexican. So you get a lot of food references, bar references. I learned about the Amish culture because one of the workers at the bar is Amish, so you do get to learn about the Amish community a little bit. So I loved that this book was not only fresh and cute and fun, but you also had a lot of learning that was embedded into this. Learning about overactive thyroids. You learn about how people's family deal with the passing and how much that leaves a lasting impression. I loved that the found family elements and how well Diego started to not only care for her as a romantic interest, but also someone to protect for his bar. He is a very protective man. So being able to see those situations where Mickey would get into it with a patron and he would pretend to be her boyfriend, but also giving her the space that she needed to know whether or not she can handle certain situations. I think the third act breakup or the third act tension was handled extremely well. Again, knowing Mickey's desire to stand on her own 2 feet and understanding how things can be ruffled and how you keep secrets from the people that you love to protect yourself is very, very important in this, and how you have to peel back the layers and become comfortable with revealing certain things about you and your past and your history. I really enjoyed this one. Again, thank you, KB. I am not sure what I'm going to pick up for March. I do have a couple of things on the high interest list, so we'll take a look to see what March has. All right, you all, I am here to talk about my March 12 for 12 read, which is Earn Me by Nia Authors. This book is literally a Babeinlibrary type of read. So I want to thank Becky from @BexReads for recommending this to me. This is everything that I personally could have wanted. It is a second chance romance, marriage in trouble, where you have our two main characters, Stone and Nadia. They have been married for 8 years. And you know, when you hit that 7 or 8 years, supposedly there is an itch or in a slump, and either your marriage makes it or it fails. And in this situation, Nadia is unhappy in her marriage, and her husband, who is a tattoo artist, is not really being present and engaging with her. He has failed to, make their marriage and their home what she's wanted, and she just wants to be with him. Now, his tattoo shop is on the rise. he has poured everything he can into making it, and she has been right beside him, pouring right into him and making his dreams come true. But at this point, she's like, hey, I've got to do what's best for me, and I think it's time for me to leave. And she does so when he is off to work. So Stone comes home and he realizes, you know, he wants to spend time with his wife, and he goes throughout the entire house and she's not there. And first thing he's doing is starting to freak out, like, where's my wife? What's going on? Not knowing this entire time Nadia has been unhappy. Now, there is no infidelity. There's nothing that breaks them apart other than what's going on in their marriage and what's going on between the two of them. The lack of communication, the lack of, you know, fulfilling their dreams as a unit and coming to an agreement on what they want out of their marriage. Now, one of the things I will tell you is that this is exceptionally written. I read Nia Author's Grumpy Romance last year, and the writing was nothing like this. So I was a little hesitant going in, not sure whether I would love it or not. But this book is so heavy and deep into the writing that it makes it so that you feel the emotions between the characters. They absolutely love and adore one another, and you want them to succeed. Now, writing wise, I fell in love with this book, but that wasn't all. The storyline and what you see that the characters go through. Now, one of the things that I love is that in this book, you have Stone going to therapy. And I love to see authors write to where the male character realizes he can't do it on his own. He can't fix what is broken and he needs the help of someone else. And so him going to therapy, and it's the type of therapy that works specifically for him, right? He's not on anyone's couch. He's not speaking to a therapist, pouring out his soul. They're actually going and bonding over rebuilding a car, which is symbolic for his marriage. He is doing the work to help this mechanic rebuild this car, and in turn learning things about his marriage that can help rebuild it from where it's currently standing. I think Becky knew exactly what I needed to read, and this is it. This is truly a Babeinlibrary read, and I couldn't be more happy. My next read in April is also a second chance romance, so hopefully it gives me the same feels. But I will talk to you all next time. Thank you, Becky, for recommending it. I actually have 2 books to discuss with you today. The first being Maya Ariel's When I Think of You. If you say this title and you don't hit the Janet Jackson in your head, when I think of you, dun, 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 you're not a real one, because this song had been playing on repeat. And I feel like Maya also had this on her playlist. If it's not, it is a missed opportunity. However, this is its own work of art. This is Maya Ariel's second chance romance that is in a workplace centered around Hollywood. Now, you have our 2 main characters, Kalia and Danny. One, let's get into the name. I have a cousin named Kalia, and I love to see it represented in our books. Kalia is pretty much in a dead-end job. She is working as a secretary for this multimedia production company, and she's really been striving to break into the scene, but every turn she makes, she gets kind of shut down until her ex, Danny, shows up on the scene. Now, Danny is a big shot producer. He is writing or working on a film that centers his parents' love story. And you would think that Danny is a Nepo baby, but truly, Maya did one of the most interesting things. She did not write Danny as such, nor Bella, who is actually the assistant that winds up stealing the job from Kalia. Now, Kalia hasn't seen Danny for years, and she's been heartbroken over this man. She hasn't been able to move on, and she doesn't know what kind of led them apart, other than the fact that one day she goes to express her good news or her joy to Danny, and she sees him with another woman, and she's like, oh, he's cheating on me. So she doesn't really know what kind of went awry with them, but really it centers a lot of grief in his life. There was some hard things that he was going through, and he just didn't know how to be in a relationship. But he has always held a torch for her, and he feels like this is his opportunity to really rekindle that relationship with Kalia. And he also feels like this is a really good time because she is a visionary. When they were in school, they worked on a project with one another, and that project was the last thing that he really felt control over and he felt was a true work of art. Since then, he has been doing projects that doesn't really benefit him, or projects that doesn't really stand firm in his heart. And he needed someone with a special eye that could help him show his parents' love story. Now, while this book is to center around Kalia and Danny's love story, the true love story that I wanted to read and get more of and be immersed in was his parents, Minnie and Nathan. Now, this is a story that's very similar to, in the book you get it, comparison to The Loving Story. It is an interracial relationship set in the 60s where Nathan is a big time film producer. He is making waves in the industry, but he isn't really supposed to be in a relationship with Minnie, Minnie, Danny's mom. Now, Minnie and her flashbacks and how we really get to see the two love stories between Minnie and Nathan and Danny and Kalia kind of meld and mold into really being, able to determine what makes you happy and how do you see your love story being played out. And I really enjoyed that. Maya being able to write the depth in these characters and make it more than just their romance. It talks a lot about microaggressions in the workplace. You get to understand when someone is making the decisions that's best for them at the time, even though it may feel like it hurts you, they're doing the best that they can while they still love you and they feel like they're doing the best thing for you. I will say, while I didn't necessarily love this as much as I thought I would, I loved bits and pieces of this. I want to say thank you to Shay from @Park Hop and Pages for recommending this to me. There were certain things about this storyline and their relationship that didn't sit right with me, but I think it's a really good story, especially for this to be a debut. My next 12 for 12 read that I picked up is going to be by Sadika Johnson. That is The House of Eve. This was recommended to me by my girl Sheen over at Sheen_Back to Reading. Thank you, girl, for this recommendation. I read this in the month of May and I read it close to Mother's Day. I actually finished it the day before Mother's Day, which was very timely because this centers motherhood, what it means to be a mother, how do we identify versus, who can be a mother. And it talks about situations where people desperately desire motherhood and other situations where mothers are doing their best to teach their children why it's important to refrain from motherhood, so on and so forth. But this book right here was very deep. This is a historical fiction that talks about everything. It talks about the hardship of being able to conceive versus it talks about the situations in which you do conceive and you don't have the support system nor the financial means to be a mother, but you still love your child and you do what is necessary for them. This talks about, mothers that we tend to think are mean-spirited or don't have your best interests at heart, when really the true reason that they're doing things is for the protection, love, and care of their child, versus certain mothers who never asked to be mothers and have a difficult relationship with the child that they are bearing or that they have had. This was multi-layered. This historical fiction reminds me of a few different books that I have been reading recently, and I was dying to get back to something that reminded me of it. So House of Eve has a little bit of a kinship to Black Cake. It has a little bit of a kinship to Passing, because this also is interesting that you get to see the dynamics of people with money versus people without money, what it looks like to be passing versus to be solely identified as a person of color. How do you interact with white people? Because there are forbidden relationships in here. This, again, has so many layers and levels to it. I will say that as I was reading this, some parts were very hard to read on page, but Sadika didn't hold back from making those lives, memorable and making history plain and obvious for stories that we don't typically get to see on page. I really appreciate having read this. And again, as it relates to motherhood and Mother's Day, every character had a part to play, whether it be the girls that you see in the home and how their dynamics deal with Ruby and how Eleanor is trying to survive in her world and doing the things that she can, and how each person makes mistakes along the way, but whether or not that defines them. I just truly this will live in my brain for a long time to come. So if you're looking for a really good historical fiction and you don't know what to pick up next, pick up Sadiqa. She is a mastermind when it comes to historical fiction, and this is the one that I'm glad it was recommended to me to read first. Today I am here to talk about Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. I do have another book on my bookshelf by Cameron, which is Off the Record. So you've probably seen me put this on a TBR before, but I knew I needed to start with Full Disclosure because it was my recommendation from AJ from at Good Books with AJ. So thank you, AJ, for sending this to me. This is a young adult novel following a female main character named Simone. Simone is 17 and she is ready to engage in sexual activity with a boy she has finally found that piques her interest in high school. So Simone is a theater kid. She really pretty much stays to herself, but she has just came to a new school and has developed a good best friendship with two main characters, Lydia and Claudia. And she finally feels comfortable to share herself with everyone in the form of theater and her involvement there, but not necessarily ready to release her secret of her HIV status. But she knows that she needs to be properly armed because she has experienced some trauma in the past with telling someone that she loved and she thought loved her in return, and that didn't necessarily go right for her. So she really wants to be able to make sure she feels comfortable with these people, as well as knowing what she needs to make sure she is engaging with a safe sex practice with Miles, because she is ready to take it to the next step with him. This book starts off with her going to visit her primary care physician with her father, as she is ready to understand what does it mean to have that healthy discussion. What are things that she should be able to do for engaging in that activity to limit any risk of transmitting that virus to Miles. So that's a very catching opening scene. I will say, as an adult reading this book, I knew that I was not necessarily the intended audience. However, I feel that everyone can learn from this book. This book is definitely something that needs to be taught to young adults in high school. There is a lot of components that encompasses the conversation, how difficult it is to be able to have a transparent and open conversation with your partner before engaging in this activity. It is also important for you to know what the different dynamics are. This book is queer-centered. You have our female main character's parents. So she was adopted at birth. She has two fathers, one Black, one Hispanic. She has a best friend that is asexual. She has a best friend that is bisexual. So it is very representative of the queer community, which is very important for the setting of this discussion, because HIV and the AIDS epidemic was such a big, vital history and pivotal points in the queer community status that it is framed in that lens. A lot of your discussion of miseducation and bias stems from that time frame. So it's important that Simone's two fathers also introduce that, and that's the reason why they decided to adopt Simone, which was very touching to be able to see. They knew if they wanted to adopt someone, they wanted to adopt someone that they couldn't necessarily say was a part of their community, but could have been a product of their community and what happened in previous years. They knew that there would be less likely of a chance for someone to adopt a Black child, one, first and foremost, and then furthermore adopt a Black child that was HIV positive. So I did like that it added that discussion into the mix for this particular book. Again, as a person who is not the intended audience, I will say I struggled with our female main character. As an adult, I can see the importance that she is trying to play in making sure that she is feeling comforted in her agency. I understand how she could have a chip on her shoulder as she interacts with people. One of the things I found it difficult to relate to her is, in my opinion, took accountability and ownership and realized when sometimes it was throwing stones, being in a glass house. She would constantly talk about people did not necessarily accept her and they feared her and they had preconceived notions. She did not understand that she judged people as well. She often would put up a defense mechanism, which again, I very much understood how history had shown her in the past to be wary of people, but she always felt that someone needed to apologize to her while not taking accountability, which is very indicative of a young adult. So I can understand that this is very much targeted to the reader, and as you read it, you're experiencing her emotions because you're reading it from her lens. But I will say I did find it a little bit hard to connect with Simone based on, again, the age demographic, the experiences of life. However, loved how she was able to stick up for herself, how she was able to make sure that she was educating people, even though it's not something that she necessarily had to do. Her ending monologue was chef's kiss fantastic, and that also showed the maturity and the growth, right? It could have gotten to a point where it was tit for tat, but she did the right thing that she needed to do to make sure that the discussion of her status was not the main focal point that was taken away from the rest of the night, and also to hand people the door or to give them the opportunity to make a change. So I really did like how the author Cameron wrapped it up toward the end with her character, so it did show a little bit of growth. I wish I would have seen that throughout the book, but again, it is a young adult novel, so it is very much relatable to how that person is in their life currently. I think this book, again, is a pivotal point in an education. If you, like myself, were ignorant to HIV and the HIV positive status, this is something where everyone is going to walk away with some really informed information. All right, it's time for me to do another check-in, and this one may be a long one because I have just read Damian's Windsor. Actually, I read it about a week ago, so I have to have my notes here because some of it is a little bit fuzzy. But I read Damian's Windsor by Ebony Farashu. This was a recommendation from Tamia over at Tamia Is Still Reading. Yeah, let me go ahead and publicly thank her, because this right here is, if I didn't read another book for this 12 for 12, I would have been satisfied, because this was the creme de la creme. This is a 5-star read. This one and Becky's Earn Me have blown me out the water. And it comes at such a surprise because literally nobody I know has read this book other than Tamia. No one is talking about this book. It is so underhyped. It is such a gem that I want to make sure that everyone reads and discovers it. Like, this book had so much compacted in it in less than 300 pages that I was knocked on my butt. Like, I feel like I could talk about this for days on end and it still wouldn't be enough, because there is so much thought-provoking discourse that is happening in this book that I could just unpack and digest with you. This is a story that I believe started out in what I presume was going to be like erotic romance, a quick novella, but it was so much more than that. So it starts off with our two main characters, which is in the title of the name. So our male main character's name is Damian. He is an author, and he is going to a art gallery, which he sees our female main character, Windsor. This, again, is one of the things that I love, that these are older characters. So Damian is 39, Windsor is 40. Windsor has locks. She is described luscious, and she is darker skin. She is a full embodied character that you can visually see. And then Damian, he's not as fleshed out in terms of some of his attributes, but his character is very, very fleshed out. So I love that Ebony, her writing style. So let me get into that before I get into really the meat and potatoes of the story. Ebony is traditionally, I believe, a poet, and so she does have 2 poetry verses in this story that kind of breathes into life what's going on. And the way in which she writes is so thought-provoking while also being so in-depth and so beautiful, even though some of the things that these characters are discussing are wild and chaotic. And I find it very interesting because these 2 characters were living by the seat of their pants. They were literally going on vibes alone. And this is not a book that I could, like, the way that the characters lived their life was something that a way that I could live my life. But I was so invested just being them and being in the moment and going with the flow and going with what worked for them. So you first see Damian and Windsor at the art gallery. she is working the room, and she has a lot of men that come to talk to her, and she doesn't want any of them. She sees Damian and she's like, oh, this gentleman is kind of a square, but I'm interested. Let me see if I can get his attention. And it actually starts off where she's giving him the eye. She's talking to a guy, and at the time the guy is getting aggressive with her, and Damian comes over and he's like, hey babe, how you doing? Like, never met her, never spoke with her, doesn't know her name, but he knows that she needs someone to kind of get her out of this situation. So he comes over, he was like, hey babe, where are you at? I've been looking for you, blah blah blah. And he steps up to the guy like, do we have a problem? Off rip, the man says, I'm gonna save you. I'm going to be what you need. And even if you didn't need me and you told me to walk away, it's okay, because I didn't want to see you in distress. That's the type of quality man that Damian is. And so from there, she's like, point one to you. Actually, I'm going to just take you home and we're going to have a good adult fun. And it starts off as a one night stand, but baby, it blossoms into so much more. It is a one night stand. I will tell you that Damian does fall first. Windsor is very guarded, but you can see she has gone through a lot of trauma. One thing I will say is this book has a lot of trigger warnings to be mindful of. It does discuss colorism. It does have some domestic abuse and sexual assault that is in the past. There is grief over a parent. There is so much that's wrapped up into this book. Like I said, it is heavy with content, but it's also light and airy with the banter. It is light and airy with the way in which they progress. They're not forceful to make their connection work. They're going with the vibe. So just as deep and dark that some of the topics are, there's a lot of light, beautiful, touching moments. These characters are so rooted in their beliefs and the way in which they go through life that you can see their values leap off of the page, and how much their family and friends are incorporated into their lives. Because these are older characters, they have gone through and experienced a lot of life. You will see that Windsor has a best friend that she loses, and she wonders if there are signs for things that she should have been wary for, or if she truly needs to move on from that relationship and do the best thing for her. So again, what starts off as a one-night stand later leads into her meeting another friend that comes into her life with a purpose. So I love that it talks about people that enter your life for a reason, some people for a season, some people that are for a lifetime, because Damian is also a single father. I'm not going to say he's a single father. He has a co-parenting relationship with the mother of his child, who lives in a different state, right? So all of those dynamics start to come into play. And what I love is that Damian has such a healthy relationship with the mother of his child. He sees his child every other weekend, and he takes that moment to drive, and the mother of his child is remarried, and they already have a child, but he has a really good established friendship, and he brings Windsor into that, and he does it in a respectable manner. And the way in which they're able to have their history and their past, and they are able to meld them together. Similarly, Windsor's family is a big part of her life. Her niece and her sister, and the dynamics of her mother and the family. So being able to see how two people that have had so much past come together and not have any pettiness, have any cattiness, and that they're able to deal with their baggage responsibly was beautiful to see. I loved how they communicated their boundaries, and even in the times where they had miscommunication, they worked through that, and it was done in a very healthy manner. Know that this is an insta love trope. Let me tell you, they go from 0 to 60 in a mile a minute. Like, they go from, like I said, meeting each other, having a one night stand, to making really big commitments to one another, deciding that they are going to pursue whatever life has in store for them in a matter of months. And to everyone else, parents, family, friends, it seems really, really aggressive and really fast, but they did not let that deter them. They went off of the soulmate connection that they felt. And one of the things that I loved was that they really supported each other. They were rooted, and they started to develop a friendship, and to some points a intermingling of, you know, values and balance in life, because Windsor encouraged him to start to venture out on his own, right? She decided, hey, you want to take your materials, and you are an author, go ahead and start self-publishing. Take care of your business. Pick up that phone call when your agent calls. I'm going to support you in any manner I can. And vice versa. She was an entrepreneur. She has a soap business, and he has a marketing degree. So every chance that he got, he was like, let me talk to you about my woman and her soap line. And actually, she can do a lotion line, and she can do this, and she can do that. If you give her the chance, I bet you she's going to blow it out of the water, right? So they were always feeding into each other, whether it be business-wise, whether it be taking care. Like, Windsor did not see a problem with him continuing to have that relationship with his son, and that relationship with the mother of his son, right? She did not come in saying, hey, you got to shut that down, I'm now your woman. She knew what he found value in and accepted him for his whole self. Vice versa, he knew that there were some things in her past that she didn't want to talk about, but when she was ready, he was going to be there. This book was so beautiful, and it dealt with the ups and downs in such a compacted time, because really sometimes life happens in that way, right? You meet that person and life comes at you, and you want to have a partner all the way through that will help you, and that will see you, and that will value you. I loved that they didn't push each other to past their limits, but they pushed each other just enough to where it took them to that next level where they would elevate. This is so good. The writing is great. Even going so far as she went to the end of the story, Ebony put it as, you know, usually it'll say the end. She said the beginning. That lets me know just how much she invested into this couple to say, hey, to you as the reader, this is the end. This is where the story stops. But for this couple, it is the beginning of everything that they have with each other. And that literally blew my mind, because that just shows the way in which she crafts her story and how she really invests in the characters and their relationship. I know that seems very, very minute, but it blew me away from a writing's perspective. The epilogue in this story, baby, when I tell you I am a woman of revenge, she knew my heart. I said, well, I'll be damned. You don't have to. There is nothing else. You shut the chapter. We're done. I'm done. I'm satisfied. I'm happy, fulfilled, and in bliss. Because one thing's for sure, I like a get back. I love that my character can be happy with her man. They could have figured everything out, weathered all the storms, but there's still somebody in my past that I want a sharpshooter for. And that is what Ebony provided to me. So if you don't take another recommendation from me in this video, go read Damian's Windsor and thank me later. I have just finished He Calls Himself Veles by Tierra Cox. This was a recommendation by Daisha from D. Ruel. I want you all to know, this one, I'm a little conflicted on. Like, I don't hate it by any means. I actually had a really good time. It just didn't end like I thought it was going to end. I felt like it was cut off and there was more that was necessary. But before I get into that, I just want you all to know, this is a dark romantasy book that centers the paranormal. So you have Cambion, who are demons and humans mix, and you have Nephilims, who are angels and human mix, right? So they're hybrids. This is a battle of the wills. This is a revenge romance, and it has a love triangle, which is normally not my jam. I do want to be mindful of some trigger warnings, child molestation, child abuse, child trafficking, and some other darker tactics. But this centers our female main character, Naraya. Now, Naraya is on the run. She has been for a very long time. She is running away from her stepfather, who she believes killed her mother. and he is also a cop. And so she was abused as a child, not by her stepfather, but her stepfather did not prevent it. And so she's like, he is coming after me. I know what he did, and so I need to be on the move. And she is living in this town where she is working at a strip club. She's making money hand over fist. And so she needs protection and security. So she decides to get into an apartment that's worth $3,500 a month with her best friend, Betty. And in this apartment, it has had switching of ownership. No one is wanting to take it, but that's because there is a haunted mirror in the bathroom. Now, of course, the people that are leasing out this apartment don't tell her that, but she's like, I'll take it. She is the only one, when she touches this mirror, that is able to release the demon. Now, the demon comes out, and he's known as Veles, and he's like, I've been waiting for this for millennials, and I think I know who this is, because I've been placed into this mirror by a particular person named Abaddon. Now, Abaddon and him have a tumultuous past, centering a woman. And so it's only right and fair that their battle centers another woman. And that woman is Naraya. Naraya lets him out, and she strikes a deal. She says, hey, if you give me revenge on my stepfather, I will be able to do your bidding in the future. And from there, that deal takes them on a wild adventure. And I had a really good time. Now, I started off not necessarily liking it. I kind of went in with this blind. I didn't know what it was going to be about. At first, I was like, this is a little slow. It's not really getting where I needed to go. But baby, when it picked up, when the action started happening, with Naraya was like, I may be part angel, but sacrifices have to be made, and I'm going to be the one that takes out all of these people that did me wrong. I said, oh, I love a good revenge plot, baby. Let the blood rain. And rain it did, because Naraya uses these demons at her disposal. Not only does she use Veles, but she uses Abaddon. You get to see Cain. You get to see Azrael. There is so much that is happening that takes you on this adventure, until the point of when their father comes on to play, and where you get to see, oh, it's a bigger battle at play. I actually really, really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I was left a little bit with a sour taste, because unfortunately, the person that she chooses is not the person that I would have chosen for her. And I feel like it cut off way too soon. There was so much more that could be discussed. But if she were to do a spinoff or to do a short epilogue, I'd definitely pick it up. Thank you, Deja, for recommending this to me. It definitely got me into the mood that I am in now for October. All right, so it is time for a check-in. Now, this one is coming a little bit late since I read this nearly 3 months ago. I do have my notes in front of me, so you may see me reference them from time to time, because this book was recommended by Avery from Ava's Romance Books. She suggested that I read Broken by the Horde King by Zoe Draven. However, this is the 4th in the series, and I am a person who has to read a series in sequential order. And so I just couldn't jump into the series in book 4. So she told me that I could start from the beginning and I can swap it out for Captive by the Horde King. So that's exactly what I did. If you know Avery, you know that she loves alien romance. And so this is an alien romance, captive, forced marriage with a possessive virgin FMC. Our FMC's name is Luna, and Luna is kind of in a situation because of her younger brother. Her younger brother has been acting out, which really comes at a disadvantage to her because she always has to step in and protect them. This time it went a little bit too far in the regards that he was burning land and burning crop to get warmth and to make sure that he could feed the family. The Hordes of Drakkar has a rule against burning Mother Earth, right? They love and honor the land, and they take this as a personal offense. So the Horde King in Luna's area's name is Vorakar. So he comes and he's like, hey, who was burning the land? Bring him out here. He's got to go because he's dishonoring us and we won't stand for it. And it's causing attention because one of the things about this story is that, yes, the Hordes protect the land and protect their people. They do have different things that are in each one of the hordes that they can care for. However, there's something called the Gutan, and they are savages. And anytime someone burns fire, that brings the Gutan to them because they know that a horde is nearby. And so Vorkar is like, hey, you're causing issues for us. You gotta go. And Luna's like, hey, take me instead. If you spare my brother, I will go with you. Just he's idiotic. Please don't pay him no mind. I promise you, if I go with you, he will act right. And so this is very similar in some regards to one of my favorite books, which is Taken to Phyrexia. I won't say it's necessarily a fated mate, whereas this one is a fated mate. This one is more so, I choose to love you and I'm going to put you first. I want you to be comfortable, because one of the things that I love about Vorkar, even though he may not necessarily take Luna's opinions into consideration, he's always going to take her feelings into consideration. And he didn't necessarily ever see himself with a human, but when he chose her to be his mate, he said he was going to honor and protect her, and he did that full force. He always wanted to make sure that she was comfortable. Now, just because Luna goes with Vorkar, that does not necessarily mean that she wants to be with him. She says, hey, I'm going to go with you to save my brother. However, I don't want you to be misunderstood. This is not that. We're not going to be happily in love. Little does she know she's going to grow to be in love with this man. But that's a romance for you. We all know that. But Luna comes in and she's like, hey, I'm not going to bathe because I don't want you to try anything intimate with me. I'm not going to eat if you won't feed my people, because in this situation, the hordes have all of the food, they have all of the resources, and they hand them out sparingly to the humans that are around their land. And so Luna is like, you're not taking care of my people, and if they can't eat, I'm not eating. But what she doesn't understand is that this man is clever. He says, hey, I'm gonna find a way to make sure you don't die on me. I know that you think that you're big and bad, but I can show you better than I can tell you. And so what he decides to do is he gets clever. One of the things that he does, he's like, I'm going to get you to the point where you actually want to be pleasured. You want to be with me, and I'm going to edge you on, and I'm going to force you to eat just enough for you to want more, for you to come back and eat some more. And he does it by like giving her pleasure. He also, in this situation, very similar to one of my favorite books, which is Alien Romances, which is the Taken series. In the Taken series, you don't know the alien's real name, right? They all have positions and titles very similar to this. So our male main character, he is known as Vorkar, but his birth given name or his slave given name is known as Arakan, and that is something that is protected in his culture. And so he's like, hey, if you really want to know my name, I will tell you my name if you decide to eat. And if you decide to eat, I will send food and resources back to your home village. And so she's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do it. Now, one of the things that irritates me a little bit about Luna is that she went around just saying his name willy-nilly. Honey, sweetheart, he just told you everybody is not supposed to know his name. So why is you going blabbing your mouth? Like, you got too big for your britches. Like, granted, she begins to love him, and he's already smitten with her. He's like, you're my wife. Like, none of this matters. Like, this entire nation is yours. Whatever you want, I'm gonna do it for you. And so he is like following her, you know, and sniffing after her. But she gets a little bit too comfortable and she starts to use his name in public. And I'm like, now settle down. However, just as much as she irritated me, she did win my favor by the fact that she humbled herself. So she was in a situation where either, I'm not sure if she disrespected someone of the community, but she was in a situation where someone in the community was wrongfully punished. And in order to get back into their graces, because she needs to learn the culture, she is now the Luna, the queen of the Horde, right? So she needs to really become one with her people, which again is very similar to stuff that happens in my favorite Alien series. She humbles herself and she's like, I'm going to work from the ground up. I am going to work with these horse-like creatures who she's deathly afraid of from her past. She's like, I'm going to work in the stables. I'm going to shovel dung, right? I am going to go to this person's house. I'm going to profusely apologize. I'm going to meet them and ask them what I can do to repair and get us in the good graces, because I am now a leader and I'm a part of the community. And I did love that Luna, over and above everything, she wind up choosing her man. She was like, hey, my brother, he started to act up again. And she's like, okay, you're my husband. I will deal with him. I will make sure to put him on the straight and narrow. And if he can't act right, I'm choosing you. I'm choosing the Horde. I'm going to go with whatever you tell me. And that makes it very interesting, because there is an antagonist in addition to the Gutan. There's an antagonist in this book that you later find out is very villainous. And I couldn't understand what the true issue was. Like, you should have been on their side and you got what you deserve. Actually, they were very, very nice to you in the end. So if you're looking for a little bit of drama, know that this has that as well, from inside the camp and outside of the camp. So I really enjoyed this one. Thank you very much, Ava, for recommending this to me. I promise you at some point I will make it to this one, because I hear it's very emotional and I know it's your favorite. So we'll continue. I think the next book I am going to read is an orc romance. So keeping on with the alien theme, I think I may read a Catherine Moon orc romance. So let's see if I can get to that this month. All right, it is time to wrap up this 12 for 12 video. I had 2 more reads that I needed to get to, and unfortunately, I did not meet the goal. I did start Games with the Orc. That was a recommendation by Hillary from @HillaryReads. I actually got about 25% of the way, and it was one of those situations that I knew I was going to enjoy it. It just wasn't the time, and so I soft DNF'd it. So more than likely, I will be picking that up back in 2025. It is the final week of December, and I am absolutely burnt out. I don't think I could read another thing. So I think I'm going to take a break until the new year and then pick it back up. I will not be doing this challenge. I think I'm going to put a pause on the 12 for 12 recommendations, just because this year I had probably 2 hits and the rest were either misses or just mediocre. So I don't think that I want to pick it up again in 2025, but I will be picking up this book in 2025. Now, the final book that I needed to read for the year was Bernice Cherry's Holly Dates. And that was a recommendation from Horde. Unfortunately, I did not like that book. I did start it. It reminded me a lot of Curvy Girl Summer, and I wasn't a fan of Curvy Girl Summer, and I knew that if I needed to read another one of those, I would probably rate it less than Curvy Girl Summer, just because, at least with that one, I started off and the vibes made sense. It was there. It just wasn't the book for me. Unfortunately, when I decided to pick up Brittany C. Cherry's version, I was like, ooh, this is taking me back and I don't want to go there. So unfortunately, I did DNF that one and I will not be picking it back up. But I know I am going to read more of Brittany C. Cherry just to get a feel of her writing. I've only read one thing from her, so I definitely want to pick up more from her. I just don't think the Holly Dates was for me. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video. Thank you to everyone who recommended something to me. I will still be taking recs in the new year. It just won't be for the 12 for 12 challenge. So if you have a book that you think that I would enjoy, or a book that you loved in 2024 that you want to see represented on BookTube, please put it down in the comments below. If you do not feel like doing that, do me a favor, leave me a treat, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye.